Our next performer came here from just down the block, Brussels, Belgium. 14-hour flight, she said. And she said she's fished all over. I told her you can fill in the details of when and where, but ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Jen Pickett.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. This first one is called The Princess and the Bird. I hate waking up in a panic, but oh, the predicaments one can wake up in when fishing in Alaska. The possibilities are truly endless. I was 28, a new skipper with a new loan and an old boat, all to be paid off, one fish at a time. I had to keep fishing. I had been drifting and dreaming, with visions of salmon dancing in my head, when I was jolted out of my slumber by Lenny calling me on the VHF. Pickett, wake up. There's a cruise ship coming around the corner. A cruise ship? What do I care, I think, in my 2-hour fog nap? I'm fishing. I have the right of way. He'll go around. There's a bunch of us out here. I don't answer him. I don't even get out of the bunk. A few minutes later, Pickett, wake up. There's a cruise ship coming around the corner. I peek out my stern window through the bunk, through squinty eyes into the morning sun. And sure enough, there's a cruise ship heading right for me. My heart sinks and a spike of adrenaline pulses through my veins. I spring out of the bunk, fire up the engine and hop into my rain gear that I keep fireman style for occasions just as this. There's no time to call this ship on the radio. There's no time for him to change course. There's no time for him to stop. There's no time to let my engine warm up. I turn on my hydros and go out on deck. I feel the cold, crisp, Alaskan glaciated air slap my cheeks. I start reeling in my net and picking fish as fast as I can. And I don't say this often, but luckily it wasn't too good of a set. I realize I don't have time to pick fish. I just start drumming everything aboard. I look over my cabin and straight up the bow of this cruise ship. And this wasn't a Phillips Dayliner. This was a 1,200-foot, 150-foot tall wall of steel heading straight for me at 40 knots. I bump up my hydros and put the boat in reverse so the net will tighten and fit on the drum for once. And for a moment, time stops and I think, really? This is it? This is how I go? I don't get the privilege of being taken by a wave from Kokahini, like the most dangerous bar on the Copper River, like so many great fishermen before me. I end up getting splattered like a bug on the bow of this tacky cruise ship with rainbow happy colors and the word princess painted on the side. No, I want a more honorable death. I rev up the engine, bump up the hydros again, and I've been out on deck about 5 minutes watching this giant wall of metal getting bigger and bigger, closer and closer. There's no question left in my mind. I cannot deny it any longer. I am dead center in its path. If I don't get out of its way, I will be run over. My hydros are screaming and I'm hoping I don't blow a hose. Water, jellyfish, blood, slime, fish, seaweed flying all over the place. Fish are smacking the deck as they're going around the drum. Thud, thud, thud. Oh, there's a king salmon. I grab my knife, prepared to cut myself free. I really don't want to do this. These nets are expensive, and this is my only one, but I'm running out of options. And then, all of a sudden, bang. My end buoy hits the deck with a thud. As it bounces aboard like a basketball bouncing over my reel. My net is in, but I'm still in its path. I rush into the cabin and turn off the hydros, thinking I really need to get that damn outside hydro switch fixed. I race back out on deck. I turn the wheel hard to port and push the throttle down as far as it will go. My diesel engine roars to life, and I feel the bow rise up and the stern squat down as it picks up speed. As soon as I get my boat turned around, I take it out of gear and start climbing up a 6-foot wave, his bow wake, and then a 5-foot, and then a 4-foot, and a 3-foot wave, each one smaller than the last. The adrenaline drains from my body. My hot tears run down my cold cheeks. My legs turn to rubber. My knees give out and I sit down on my fish hold and I cry. And through blurry eyes, I see this wall of white about 100 feet away from me. It fills my entire field of vision. The playful colors on the side of the ship mock me. I see a passenger having breakfast. She waves at me. She has no idea her vacation almost just killed me. Needless to say, I am not as happy to see her as she is to see me. But there's only one way I think I can to communicate this, so I raise my right orange glove and I give that princess the bird. Thank you. This one's called Ocean of Blue, and I'm a bit of a writer, but not much of a poet. So sometimes I like to take old poems and sort of rearrange them, make them my own. And this one's derived from The Garden of Love from William Blake. And this is called The Ocean of Blue. I went to the ocean of blue and saw what I never had seen. A plastic flotilla was floating in lieu where there used to be life of marine. And the bars of the watershed were closed. And life shan't pass, wrote in a gyra of debris. So I turned to the ocean of blue that so many had fished before me. And I saw it was filled with plastics, bags and bottles where fish should be. And the fishermen in black gowns were mourning their fishing grounds and the marine litter that chokes their joy and their sea. Thanks. There's 9 rivers in the world that populate, that pollute the ocean with 90% of the plastics that come into our waters. So as some of you may know, I'm a recovered commercial fisherman. I fished in Alaska off and on, but just north of 20 years. And now I'm a scientist. And I study marine psychology, which is the interplay of human behavior in the sea. And so the following poem is a result of my latest study, which is sewn together into a poem. It's a qualitative study, and there were 9 fisher poets as my participants, all who fish for salmon in Alaska, men and women of various ages, represented all the gear types, gill-netted, set-netted, trolled, and seine. And I asked them in an interview what their working and living conditions were like. I recorded all their answers, and that served as my data. I trolled the data for recurrent themes, and what emerged most were occupational stressors, the coping mechanisms that these fisher poets use to manage these challenges, and the uplifts or positive aspects that they encountered while fishing. So the occupational stressors were categorized into confinement, isolation, and environmental. Confinement was mainly lack of personal space. Isolation was mostly the monotony of the people that they fished around, and environmental was typically the foul Alaskan weather. And what was unique about this study is not only is there now a scientific empirical study with fisher poets in an international peer-reviewed journal called Human Behavior of Extreme Environments, but it's one of the few studies that talks about the positive aspects of working on the water. So the poem follows suit of the article. First, I describe the participants, and next the stressors, coping mechanisms, and finally the uplifts. And these are all the participants' own words. So part 1, the participants. We're a boat full of good cheer. We're set netters. I'm a seiner. I'm a troller. I have been given the privilege of catching fish. I fish as a gill netter. It's what I do. I've always been attracted to the ocean. I've always been a fisherman. Both my parents were fishermen, and so I was out there doing it before I was able to make decisions for myself. Well, don't you ever wonder if people have their identities so wrapped up into what they do as commercial fishermen seem to? It's what I am. It's who I am. It's my identity. I just always knew. I knew I was a fisherman before I knew I was a woman. I've never worked. I fish. I've got broken bones, but I've never had a bad day. Had some rough ones, hoping I could make it through, but I've never really had a bad day fishing. I started in 1958 fishing with my grandfather. I'm used to being a fisherman. I've been doing it since 1976, so it seems kind of normal to me. I love it. It's a family thing for me. What does it mean to be a fisherman? For the past 53 years, it's made me who I am. What does it mean to me? It means I work hard. It means I have a connection with the ocean and nature and my elders, a profession. I have a community. Part 2, the stressors. I would kill you for a salad. I've experienced the full 9 yards of being completely frightened and thinking more than once I was going to die. More than once. The boat is little. My boat, it's Spartan. There's a tiny little cook stove. There's a sink that leads to a bucket for draining. The fridge is a cooler. There's no space. And since it's aluminum, it sweats. So with people living down below, plus boiling water, making coffee, we often get a little rain from overhead. It drips on your face at night. These things build character. Personal space, there's none. There's just no space. It can be irritating. I'll be like, wow, this place is crazy and I can't stand it for another second. But mostly, you just get bored of the people you're around. We were caught in a 100-mile-an-hour gale, and the waves were higher than the mast and the boat was trying to sink. One guy got religion and the other guy quit. The working conditions, they're hard, physically and mentally. It's really variant on the weather and the day and the sleep. It can be pretty brutal. The working conditions, I think, are more than what's healthy on my mind. The working conditions, they're variable. Sometimes it's the most pleasant thing in the world, and sometimes it's the grubbiest job that you can imagine. And of course, it's muddy. We spend a lot of time in the mud. And everyone is prepared to go, 24, even 30 hours straight without a break if they have to. If it's nice and a sunshiny day, it's a walk in the park. But if it's an ugly day, it's not a walk in the park. But the conditions are hard, long, and the more fish you pick, your hands become numb and sore. I hurt a little bit when picking fish. And the weather can beat us up, but in some ways, there's an aspect of a storm that makes it kind of fun too. It's typically exhausted days. I've developed a 1,000-yard stare. It's sometimes, the weather conditions are nice, but for the most part, the weather's awful, and the sea is rough. It kind of can beat you up. It grinds people down. Part 3, coping mechanisms. Shower, booze, sleep, good book. But we don't usually have time for the good book, but that's 3 kinds of escape. And everyone gives one another privacy when there's time by reading privately and not pestering one another. We share a lot, we communicate a lot. It's a small space, giving each other space when it's needed or when it's possible. Personal space is hard, but a good fisherman understands. You can be in close proximity with one another, working side by side, and still have terrific personal space. Silence is as good as another room. Part 4, the uplifts. The feelings you get on the fishing ground, they're so incredible. It's a rush. You have to be there with your eyes, your ears, your smell, your touch. We had whales playing around us. We were catching fish. We were deck loading the boat. What's boat life? What's boat life like? It's a freedom. It's enjoyable. I have my boat. It's a freedom. I can lift my finger and say, okay, which way am I going? I like it. It's really simple. There's just 3 of us. It's a really small space, a 1-burner cook stove. It's kind of like camping, but for 6 weeks. And we live really close together, really close. And some of my best friends are people that I only get to see for a limited part of time of the year. I enjoy it as a time to get silly and get to know each other. And you know, you kind of go through withdrawals at the end of the season because every thought you had, every question, every joke, you know, you have so many inside jokes by the end of the season. You just turn and like, they're not there. They're like living in another town or another street or even another room, which isn't a possibility on a boat. Sometimes it goes from the mellowest to mellow at low water. Say September low water in the middle of the night with the brightness of the aurora borealis is so good you can pick fish by the light of it. The fishing, getting up before daylight, watching daybreak and the sun go down, watching it get dark. I love that. I just love that. It's a meditation as much as it is watching the ocean. But it's more complete than that. It's a special time for me. It's like going to church for some people. God, there's no finer quality than being alone on the ocean. It's, for me, a meditation. It's a real special time. A lone fisherman, perfect. When you watch a beautiful sunrise and it's glassy calm and it looks like a silver sheet and fish are coming in and you're loading up the boat. At night, the perfect day is when it's been not too rough, kind of calm, we caught some fish. And that evening, get the boat all cleaned up, washed up, fish are iced down. We turned off the lights, turn off the engine, and get that last cup of coffee in. I go out on deck and listen to the creak of the boat swell or roll as she swells. I listen to the creak of the boat as she rolls in a gentle swell, and I watch the stars. And that's the closest heaven as I'm ever going to need to get. It gives me the most joy in work. I made a vow that I would never work oh my goodness. It gives me the most joy in work, and I made a vow that I would never work for a living, so I became a fisherman. Thank you.
My name is John Palms, like palm trees.
Were you a performer last night?
Yeah, I was at the Voodoo Room.
Oh, I think that's where I saw you. Weren't you the guitarist? Well, we could.
Okay, so what kind of pithy comment would you like me to make for your? So, like I said, I did 10 years of TV news, so I'd be looking for the soundbite about this point.
Well, how long have you been coming here and performing?
I don't know. I think it might be, it's probably going on 9 years. And it's really incredible here because, see, I'm from Juneau, Alaska, and I'm a long way from home. But 2 nights ago, I met a guy who I took a tugboat ride from Ketchikan to Seattle in the middle of the winter with. I haven't seen him for 30 years or something. And I never expected that I'd see him here, but it was an incredible adventure. It was a big adventure, and I won't go into it, don't have the time for it all here, but just the fact that he was here, and there are so many other people here that not only understand fishing, but they know the places that I used to fish, and, they know the people and they know the boats, and, so it's something special. So here I do have people that have common experience, and some of it's not always good, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. It must have been wonderful to bump into this person after 30 years.
Well, it's great just because I get to tell the story to people. So.
Well, is there a performance you're looking forward to tonight?
Just my performance.
Oh, of course. Is that at the Voodoo Room again?
No, I can't remember where it is. I think it's at the Fort George Brewery, but I think, anyway.
Okay. Well, you did poetry, right?
No, I sang songs.
Oh, okay. Were you with the guitar?
Yeah, you don't remember any of the songs. You don't remember I spent the best years of my life working on a boat named after somebody else's ex-wife.
No, I would have remembered that one. The beautiful song and the story was very nice too. So, well, maybe we'll see you tonight. Thanks.